What is up, everyone? Welcome to the second live stream, live paper grading extravaganza, as I like to call it. If in case you did not get the MO, which I don't know how you would be in this live stream if you didn't get the MO, but I am like combining basically my 2 and 5 p.m. classes into one just mega live stream, mainly because I still feel, I've taken like 2 or 3 shots of Pepto-Bismol, and it was a bad idea to get Taco Bell last night. That's pretty much where all of this stems from. But I'm going to be going over 3 of the papers submitted for volunteer papers, 2 from my 2 p.m. and 1 from my 5 p.m. So we might go over the 3:15 mark by a little bit, and that's okay. If you have to leave, obviously do your thing, leave, and just know that this is going to be on the channel, right? But if you do stick around, you can ask me questions. Again, just like with last time, I have the chat up. If you say something in the chat, it's going to pop up on my screen, so I'll be able to see it. There's a little bit of a delay, I think like 7 seconds, I'm not sure. But we're going to go ahead and jump into this because I don't want to waste y'all's time or my time, because I'm ready to take a nap, to be honest with you. I am just feeling like a bag of rocks. That's the best analogy I can give right now. All right, let me hide this and let me get out of that. I've been on the search for some vintage Zoe 101 memorabilia, and found this on eBay. I'm pretty excited about it. I might bid on it. I'm not sure, but we'll see about it. I don't know. $9.95 seems a little high, but that might be just me being cheap. So the first paper we're gonna cover today is covering a video artifact. So if you are one of the few students that is writing about a video, especially pay attention. This will apply to really anyone's paper, because I'm going to be covering and grading for the same things. But as we know, video is a little bit different than, a stagnant image, right? So I'm going to go ahead and jump into it. Hold up. I don't think I uploaded these papers, but it's okay. I should have. I might do that for the third one, just upload these right before class so y'all can kind of follow along too if you want to. Let me get my mic level set and we'll jump into it. Okay. So this is a paper titled "For Once, Don't Do It." I think this is the title of the artifact, and when I first opened this paper, I was a little confused because, as y'all know, one of the first things I do, and I did this in the last paper, is I do an immediate check for MLA. So let's go ahead and do that, all right? It looks like this student has everything that they need for MLA. So we got a name here. That's good. We got to name all the identifying information in the top left in the correct order, which is great. The one thing I will say is there is a space right here, which there shouldn't be. So I'm going to have to ding off a couple points for that. And also, and I double check this if this is your paper that I'm reading right now. I went back and checked the email, and I'm pretty sure that this is wrong, but if you didn't intend to do it, just make sure that you figure out how to fix this. Paragraph should be indented. So if we go down to the memo of this paper, you can see that there is an indentation on the memo, but none of the paragraphs in the paper itself are indented, which is an MLA requirement. So I'm going to have to take off points for that. So that's 2 things I've noticed already. Margins look good. The memo is in the correct spot. there wasn't really any format requirements for the memo, so I'm totally fine if y'all just kind of put it on its own separate paper, as long as I know that it's not the closing paragraph. That's all I care about. And then let's check out the works cited. We got the works cited title at the top centered, which is great. The sources in alphabetical order, which is great. You can see this is the source that they're working with. Because it's a video, obviously I don't expect them to post anything about that in the next page. If it was just an image, I would expect the next page to have the artifact on it. But because we're working with a video, everything's okay. And just like with the last paper, I'm going to put the rubric at the end of all of y'all's paper, and I'll make comments as I go. But with MLA, it just seems like there were two issues. That's the indentation and the spacing between the identifying information and the title. So right off the bat, MLA starting at an 8 out of 10, which isn't awful, but those are really easily fixable mistakes, right? Okay, so what I want to do really quick, just because this is a visual artifact, is I want to watch it because it's only a minute long. That way all of us watching together will know what this author is talking about whenever they are writing. So this is the commercial that they wrote about. Let's see what's going on. Okay, interesting. This, just on the surface level, it seems like it's going to be pretty difficult to write about, but I'm interested to see how the writer approached it. As y'all could see, it's very minimal. It did come out in May, around the time of George Floyd death, and I think that that's what the commercial was covering. And just to let y'all know, I went in and changed the identifying information for all of these student submissions, but I didn't actually read the papers like all the way through. I read maybe a paragraph of each paper just to see if it was on the right track. So I'm going into this blind with you. But just watching that commercial, it seems like it's very minimal. Of course, the focus is typography. There's like kind of emotional music in the background and the Nike logo at the end. And it's going against the, the tried and true Nike motto, like the just do it. So there's some interesting things to work with, but I do think it's going to be quite challenging to write about just because of the lack of visuals. So let's see how this author did. I'm going to jump into it. All right. For once, don't do it. There's been a long history of systemic racism in our nation leading up to present times. To address the racism and police brutality epidemic that is taking place in modern-day America, Nike published a 60-second video titled, "For Once, Don't Do It." The simple yet memorable and empowering commercial was aimed to highlight the severity of systemic racism and police brutality in America and remind its consumers to continue to stand up for injustices. While many that do not experience it choose to ignore it or are unaware, racism is still present in more ways than just slavery. Hold on. Racism negatively affects Black Americans compared to other races in regards to employment, healthcare, income, educational opportunities, and even where they can live. This has all become emphasized with the recent injustices against Black Americans by law enforcement officers. While Nike aims to highlight the severity of, which Nike aims to highlight the severity of. In present times, commercials are commonly developed to reach wider audiences. Social media and technology are adopted by billions of people around the world, creating a space for communication, easy access to information, and, in this case, an influential place to seek and demand change. While Nike's video was a commercial, it refrained from promoting the brand or its products and focused on its message, serving as propaganda. The video was created to appeal to the emotion of the audience and convince them that a problem resides in America and that Americans must take a stand to create long-term change. This is a weird page break right here. I'm not sure what's going on there. By focusing on its message and attempting to convince the audience to demand change, Nike's commercial aligns with what an artifact of propaganda is, information used to publicize a particular cause. Looking specifically at the For Once Don't Do It commercial created by the Nike brand, it is identifiable how its visual, music, arrangement, and the use of kairos aid to convey their message regarding the severity of police brutality and systemic racism and how Americans must continue to demand change. Okay. So there's a lot to unpack here, right? That was almost a full page long paragraph, which I told y'all there's nothing wrong, there's no limits or set standard for how long paragraphs should be. I think the good rule of thumb is 4 to 6 sentences, but if something works well and it's shorter than 4 to 6 sentences or longer than 4 to 6 sentences, it's going to work well. I do think that this opening paragraph does a lot of things well. I also think there are some issues with it that we should look at as a class. First of all, this is a propaganda analysis paper, right? So what we're really focusing on is what makes this artifact in question, the Nike commercial, a piece of propaganda. We don't really get into the propaganda aspect until about, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sentences in, which isn't inherently wrong, right? Like I said, there's no universal formula for writing opening paragraphs. But I think in this instance, there should be some cuts made in these opening sentences. I think there's a lot of contextualization, that is happening, that addresses a very huge issue, right? Systemic racism. But for the purposes of this paper, we're not really covering or trying to prove that systemic racism exists or doesn't exist, What we're trying to do is prove that this artifact is a piece of propaganda, how it's influencing its audience to think or act in a certain way. And I think the sooner we can get into that, the better it's going to be for the reader. It's not that any of this is actually very well written, to be honest with you. It's not that any of it is wrong. I just think that for the purposes of this paper, we don't need these huge explanations of systemic racism and the history that lead up to it, right? So where is the thesis of this opening paragraph? I would argue that it kind of takes place throughout 2 to 3 sentences. I would say it mainly starts. Is it not going to let me do it? That's unfortunate. Oh, I see. Whatever. I think it mainly starts right here. Is when we kind of establish that this is propaganda. And then the real meat of the thesis begins here. This video was created to appeal to the emotion of an audience and convince them that a problem resides in America and that Americans must take a stand to create a long-term change, right? By focusing on its message, Nike aligns with propaganda, blah, 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 blah. And then I think this is kind of covering the basis of what this paper is about to jump into, right? So this is actually a really good example. Here, I'll give you the good job sticker. This is a good example of how a thesis can be broken up into several sentences and be disjointed and still establish kind of the main concept of a paper, right? A thesis doesn't have to be one single sentence that says, this paper does this and it's going to cover A, B, and C, right? What this writer is doing really well here is not only outlining the exigence of this paper in these couple of sentences, but also setting up what the following paragraphs are going to cover without it feeling like a 5-paragraph essay, which I really appreciate. So the takeaway from this is, for the writer and for the class, don't spend 7 sentences contextualizing, if your propaganda artifact is covering a major issue like race, I think you really need maybe 1-2 sentences kind of setting up the scene of what this propaganda artifact's about to do. And that's it, right? You don't need to go into this long explanation, because a lot of this is probably, if I imagine, and I'm sure the writer is thinking this right now, a lot of this is going to be covered in the following paragraphs when we're talking about Kairos and the typography and the message and things like that. So work on cutting this paragraph down, maybe 3, 4, 5 sentences, and getting to the point, right? This is propaganda. Here's why it's propaganda. Here's what this paper is going to cover. All right, let's move on. The author of this artifact is the clothing brand Nike, who created this commercial with the intent to spread awareness, demand change, and voice their stance in regards to systemic racism and police brutality. The video was released on May 29th, 2020, in the midst of what was considered our generation's own civil rights movement. The brand aimed to make their message clear and simple, as basic human rights for Black Americans should be. This is inserting yourself into the analysis, which you don't want to do. Even if it's an issue that you are passionate about, this is for everyone. This is an analysis paper that you are, again, purpose of this paper, analyzing the propaganda for how it makes the audience think and act. That is 100% what the paper should focus on, and you need to take yourself out of it completely. Nike's goal was to produce a feeling of dismay and sadness in the audience as a means to convince them that the change is necessary and will not happen on its own. Good. How do they do that? Maybe that'll be covered in a second. I'm going to give the writer the benefit of the doubt, but it's a claim, but we also need to see how this is happening. The message reached not only Nike consumers, but other viewers using social media and the internet that watched the video as it was shared online and went viral. So this is kind of and again, I could tell that this was going to be a difficult artifact to write about, mainly because it's so simple in its visual layout, right? But you can see that I feel like the writer is trying to buy a little bit of page space here by setting up the rhetorical situation, which is fine. But a lot of this is already kind of established in the previous paragraph, right? Like some of it's a little bit redundant. So let's move on to paragraph 3. An aspect that is evident in the commercial is its visual simplicity. Good. The commercial draws attention to one thing, the message on the screen. Good. The simple written phrases, "Don't accept innocent lives being taken from us," and "Don't think this doesn't affect you," are the brand expressing that it shouldn't take more to realize that there is a serious problem in America. Good. Nor should it be a problem continually avoided or one that is disregarded because it doesn't affect another's race. Let's see. Are the brand expressing that it shouldn't be? Okay. I can buy that this isn't personalization, but it feels, again, like the writer is inserting themselves and their opinion into this, which, again, y'all can be passionate about the thing that you're covering, right? But this should be focused on what it's doing for the audience. And I feel like this one is teetering up to that line of talking about what the audience is doing versus what the author is feeling, right? To focus on this message, Nike displays it on an empty screen with a simple font. By doing so, the viewer's attention has nowhere to focus besides the message the brand is attempting to convey. Good. The video contrasts past Nike commercials since it portrays a clear message in white letters on a black screen rather than producing their typical flashy, fast-paced commercial. Okay? I would buy that, though I would like to see an example of that. Maybe if you talked about similar messages being conveyed by Nike, like Colin Kaepernick commercials or stuff, and, just cited that and said, for example, this alternate ad that covers the same topic of systemic racism was completely different, right? Nike does this to capture an audience's attention since the commercial is unlike their usual one. They place the focus on the message rather than illustrating any other elements that may distract from the point that they are trying to get across. So I do think that this paragraph is very focused on one thing, which is really good. I'm going to give another good job here. But I'm also going to give a Tobey Maguire error because I think when you make a claim like the video contrasts other Nike commercials, you should at least just briefly reference a commercial, right? For example, the Colin Kaepernick commercial. That's the only one that can come to my mind, but I know the writer, you probably have done a little bit more research into what Nike's presenting and stuff. So I would suggest maybe kind of tossing that in just to back up your claim here. Other than that, this is a very focused paragraph, right? Opening sentence. Commercial is its visual simplicity. Closing sentence. They place the focus on the message rather than illustrating any other elements, right? So you can see it comes full circle. This is a very, very good paragraph. Minus the slight lack of evidence to back up the claim, but I mean, other than that, it's really focused. Okay, so Nike focuses on the message through its visual simplicity with nothing to accompany it besides background music. Good. Music is commonly used in propaganda as a tool to elicit an emotional response in an audience. Good. This is because to process music, we use the same parts of the brain as we would for emotion and memory. Typically, a shift from major keys to minor keys is what makes many sad songs include provoking a sense of melancholy. Oh no, this is a weird break right here. I kind of see what you're saying. A shift from major keys to minor keys is what many sad songs use to provoke a sense of melancholy. I think that that's kind of the direction it's going in. But this is some kind of advanced, I'm a musician. I kind of understand what you're talking about and also don't. But I do get it. I see what you're saying here. Like it's a intentionally written song or intentionally selected song to evoke emotion. So I'm fine with it. In Nike's video, a shift from major key to minor key accompanies the message, eliciting a sense of sadness in the audience. The reason for the brand's choice in music is to evoke emotion or pathos in the viewers. Good use of rhetorical jargon here. The video is executed in such a way so that when the viewer watches it and reads the message, they associate it with a feeling of sadness and dismay for the current state of this country in regards to racism. I'm going to come back to that. The brand's mission in doing so is to make the audience use the feeling of dismay and desire for change to take action toward helping spread awareness and working towards shaping and improving society. So the reason why I said I was going to come back to that, let me read this sentence again and make sure I'm not going crazy. The video is executed in such a way so that when the viewer watches it and reads, okay, that's what I was looking for, and reads the message, they associate it with a sense of feeling a sadness and dismay for the current state of the country in regards to racism. Okay. So yeah, no, this is a good paragraph, I think. I don't fully understand the shift from major to minor key, but I get the sense that the writer knows what they're talking about reading that, so I'm not really going to question it. And they also kind of keep it more generalized. If it got way more specific, I would kind of be confused, but I think because it's set up in a way that is kind of generalized and doesn't feel kind of overwhelming as far as musical jargon, I kind of get it, right? All right, so tying in with the choice in music is the brand's choice in arrangement. The arrangement of each aspect in the commercial serves meaning towards Nike's goal in evoking emotion in the audience as a result of using pathos. So one thing I want to point out for all of y'all is that if you notice, what the writer is actually doing really well is in each paragraph is hammering in a message that they have been the entire time, right? Nike is capitalizing on current events, right? And these are things that were set up in the thesis statement, right? Kairos, current events, music, arrangement, visual, and the issue that it's addressing, right? But in each paragraph, the subsequent paragraph is kind of addressing what the last paragraph had covered, but then introducing new information. And this is something that I'm going to cover in the third paper. It's a writing technique called the known new contract. But basically, if I'm going to give you just a simple kind of explanation right now, obviously, I have never read this paper before, right? The only person that is an expert on this paper is the writer themselves. And as you can see, to introduce new information to the reader, because the reader is going into it blind, right? They pull from old information, such as emotional appeal and pathos, to introduce new information. And that's what they're doing really well in this paragraph right here. Nike's goal in evoking emotion in the audience is a result of using pathos. What did we cover in the last paragraph? Pathos, right? So we're pulling this old information that I've already got in my brain to introduce a new idea. And it's a really good writing technique for tying paragraphs together. Again, we'll cover this in paper 3 because it's a huge skill for argumentation. But I don't know if you did this intentionally, Ryder, but good job. The arrangement, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so more specifically, the brand based their choice in the video's arrangement upon emphasizing the same feeling of sadness that the choice in music sought to evoke. Good. Again, pulling from what they covered, 2 paragraphs ago. The commercial would first reveal the word don't to highlight that the remaining portion of the phrase in the message, or more specifically, what Nike is alerting the audience not to do. Okay, so what they're pointing out here is in this commercial, Nike is starting the typography with, let me find an example, like don't turn, right? And then you're back on racism. So they're highlighting certain phrases first and then introducing the rest, which is good. And I'm glad that you're pointing that out because, that's definitely a rhetorical technique that the author in this rhetorical situation is using to highlight information. Altogether, the brand's choice and arrangement was done to create emphasis on the message that they are trying to convey. By employing said emphasis, they made the simplicity of the commercial powerful and empowering. I just want to give the writer props because I went into this kind of expecting it to not be great because the art, first of all, this doing a rhetorical analysis is difficult, especially if you've never done one before, because it's really easy to kind of veer into summary. And you can see that the writer is making a point to keep everything focused on the rhetorical situation, right? Here's what the author's doing. This is why they're doing it. And this is how it's persuading the audience, right? But this paragraph in particular is probably the tightest paragraph yet because, one, it's tying in information that was already previously covered, right? So things like Nike's message in this situation, Kairos, pathos, what was the other one? The music choice. They're tying in all of this old information, introducing a new facet of the analysis, which in this case is the arrangement of the text. And then they just stay focused on how the arrangement of the text is also doing the same thing that the other visual elements are doing, right? There's no drifting away. There's no claims that are unsubstantiated. This is a very tight, succinct paragraph. And honestly, kind of an ideal paragraph. This is kind of what you would want each paragraph to look like, right? You're introducing one idea, you're explaining what you mean by that, and then you're moving on. Really good job. So it looks like we got a couple more. Let's see. The Nike brand published this commercial in the midst of what many consider to be our generation's own civil rights movement. I want to say you want to avoid making claims like this, even if this is true, right? This is a claim, but it's also a claim that cannot be verifiably proven true, right? So you don't want to say what many consider to be this, or like, you know what I mean? Or what a lot of people say is this, because it makes it seem more like a rumor or an unsubstantiated truth. I would just avoid using language like this, any of y'all, and just kind of stay focused on the rhetorical situation. More specifically, the video was published 4 days following the death of George Floyd. So this is the Kairos paragraph, which is good since they brought that up. A 46-year-old black man unjustly killed in police custody. The week of George Floyd's death followed with support through several messages, posts, and protests by outraged Americans to raise awareness for the injustice and evoke change. To display their support and desire to dismantle systemic injustice, Nike aired this commercial days following the incident. Okay, good. So this is supporting the claim of Kairos already. The moment this video was aired was done so to be kairotic, good, or an opportune moment to deliver a particular message. Kairos is important when it comes to propaganda, as the author is trying to deliver a message that will be immediately applicable to the audience. Great. Really good job. Nike released this video at a time considered kairotic to better enforce the message that they were trying to convey regarding police brutality and systemic injustice, and their dedication towards working to evoke long-lasting change. Good. This is another solid paragraph. I feel like, writer, you're getting better as you're going down the paper. I think in the opening paragraphs, you're trying to introduce a lot of information at once. But if you keep things really tight like this, like you have in the last two paragraphs, like this is already in my mind a good paper. But I feel like as a reader, I wouldn't be so overwhelmed wondering like, what is the focus of this rhetorical situation, right? We need to keep this focused on the George Floyd death, because that's what this propaganda artifact is attempting to capitalize on, right? And I would suggest in your opening paragraph that you focus on what you're talking about right here, and how that the George Floyd death is what sparked this. And then that way you would be able to introduce kind of the idea of systemic racism and kind of briefly go over why it's important for this particular piece of propaganda without having to spend 7 sentences, kind of giving an overview of what it is. What sets this video apart from a Nike advertisement is that the brand published this video to help spread awareness and further demand for change, not to promote their apparel. Okay. In contrast to other Nike commercials, see, I disagree, but I have a bachelor's degree in rhetorical theory. I don't think a company that makes money, period, is ever doing anything they are spreading awareness, sure, but it's also bringing awareness to their brand, which in turn, gives them money. I'm not disagreeing with your claim here. I'm just saying it's a bold claim. It's a bold claim, but my interpretation couldn't be proven, and neither could yours. In contrast to other Nike commercials, this one remained focused on the message rather than one promoting the brand or utilizing any of their usual flashy tactics. Again, if you cover that, like give an anecdote, right? Give an example of what you mean by this. Really quick and easy. It wouldn't take more than 2 sentences to write it. Just cite another video and your work cited, and bada bing, bada boom, there you go. But when you just say, like, compared to their usual artifacts, I'm not quite sure what that means, because Nike puts out a lot of content, right? And they're also involved in a lot of messaging on systemic racism. So I think you should be specific when you're talking about them contrasting their usual message. And that goes for anyone. If you're saying my propaganda artifact is directly answering or contradicting another one, you need to kind of cite that and tell me how specifically it's doing that. The commercial's simplicity in visuals and music, emphasis on words and arrangement, and the use of Kairos by releasing the commercial shortly after the killing of George Floyd under police custody, all aid to convey their message regarding the severity of police brutality and systemic racism, their stance on it, and how we must continue to make ourselves heard if we seek long-term change. Very good job. This is kind of ideally what a closing paragraph should do in a paper like this. You're basically just wrapping up everything you said, right? You're like, as you can see, through the use of, emphasis, arrangement, music, Kairos, that this propaganda artifact is making people think or act in a certain way, fill in the blanks here. And that's exactly what this writer is doing. So really good job there. Let's read the memo really quick. Now, I will say the memo for me is more or less kind of, I'm interested in y'all's opinion, right? I value everyone's opinion. Again, I have a degree in rhetorical theory, so like my entire focus in undergrad was listening to both sides of everything, quote unquote, right? I'm interested in what y'all have to say, but what I will tell y'all is your opinion in no way is going to affect the grading of the paper, right? When I'm covering analysis and organization right here, I'm 100% grading on what you did in your paper. In this memo, this is going to be kind of where the voice section comes out. Now, if you don't do the memo, obviously like that could hurt your grade, but don't feel as if like with the first paper that I'm going to be grading as harshly with this, okay? After examining this piece of propaganda in depth, I believe it served as a good way to spread awareness on police brutality and systemic racism. The ways I believe it succeeded, the ways I believe it succeeded in persuading its audience what taking action to evoke long-term change was necessary was primarily through its utilization of Kairos and its overall message. And Ryder, I agree with you. I think the timing of the commercial is in my mind what probably made it effective. Because if you imagine, to any of y'all, if they released this commercial right now, you know, would it be as effective? If they released it a week before George Floyd's death, would it have been effective? No. It was what was happening in the world in that moment, and the writer did a good job of kind of highlighting that in their analysis. But I agree that that's probably the most powerful rhetorical appeal here, outside of emotion. However, to people who are unaware of the current state of the country and what is happening regarding systemic racism, it would not provide much, if any, knowledge on the topic, leaving some confused. Right. Agreed. The video informed viewers to take a stand and not be part of indulging in the injustice by doing things such as disregarding it with the mindset that it doesn't directly affect them. Regardless, to people not previously informed on systemic racism and police brutality and its current role, I think you meant role. I don't know. I'm not going to grade you for grammar in this section, don't worry. In its current role in America, it would most likely leave them confused about what the brand is trying to convey. Personally, I feel that the simple commercial was published at a chaotic time and was powerful despite its simplicity. It reached a large audience beyond just its consumers and was shared by many, including rival brands such as Adidas, serving its purpose. Good. So this is a really good memo. I agree with the writer, like an issue like systemic racism is inherently divisive, unfortunately, and it's not going to appeal to people that are unfamiliar with it, right? They're going to be more confused. Also, with the simplicity, it really doesn't help people that might not be completely aware of these issues, right? But I do appreciate that you point that out, because the whole point of a rhetorical analysis is like, is this going to work for an intended audience or an unintended audience? And in this case, the writer, I think, correctly claims that it's going to work very well for the intended audience, right? But maybe not as well for the unintended audience. So really good job with the memo. Works cited. Usually this, I'm going to give you all an insider secret since we only got 16 people in here. The way I grade works cited is, one, I find the artifact and I check to make sure that that's right. So when I'm looking at this, the first thing I see immediately is there's some formatting issues right here, and this period needs to be here. There needs to be a period here. I think that's it. So there's a couple of period issues. I'm going to point them out on y'all's paper, but I'm not going to really dock points for them because, again, this is a paper to just kind of practice. The next paper, you're going to be doing in-text citations. You're going to be citing things. I'm going to take it very seriously. So make sure you look at my feedback on your work cited just to see the nuances, but don't worry because I'm not going to take off points unless it's just absurdly wrong, right? Like unless it's just not even an MLA, then I would take off points. What I do is I find the artifact, I grade it, and then I pick a random one and I grade that too. But it looks like you use citation generator, so you're good. Just with citation generators, make sure that you're in the current version of MLA. And again, always check for those periods. And depending on what source you're pulling from, make sure that it's citing it correctly. Just always do a double check because citation generators are not 100% right. All right. So let's while I'm grading this, I'm gonna pull this up.
All right, then keep your secrets.
God, this is such a ridiculous graphic. Let's see what y'all have to say in the chat. Like, what would you give this paper? And then I'll show you what I'm doing. Good. So I see a lot of people saying B, high B, low A, B plus, B. Let me see. Let me calculate this up, and I'll show you. Actually, I can do this in my head. What am I thinking? So you got. Wow, so y'all are pretty spot on. I mean, you know, you were listening to me too. So this is where I landed, and I'm gonna kind of explain why, and then we'll go to the next paper. It is a B plus, and a lot of y'all said that. Unfortunately, is in the 89 range, which I hate to see it. You know, I hate to give an 89, but in this case, I had to, because. First of all, let's just talk about really that first paragraph, I think, is what threw me off. And that was really the only point in this paper where I kind of stopped and had to make commentary on the paragraph itself. It's way too long. I think it's setting up too much information at once for what this paper should be focused on, which is the George Floyd death and how Nike responded to that specifically. And I think just by condensing that, it's going to help. With the analysis, I took off 3 points just because there were some times where I felt like the writer inserted themselves or made claims that they couldn't really support with evidence, right? So I took off a couple of points, but generally, this paper was not a summary, which is really good. We'll see if any of the other ones I look at today are, so I can give you an example of what I mean by summary. But this paper is very focused on analyzing the artifact in question, which is good. Writerly voice, 10 out of 10. Again, I told y'all a secret with that is kind of the memo is what I'm looking for. If you kind of can break down the artifact well and give me your opinion on it, that's what I'm looking for there. There were a couple of comma issues, but nothing crazy, so I took off a point. And the MLA style from the beginning. So 89, writer, work on that first paragraph. Get that kind of cut down 4 or 5 sentences. This is going to be an A paper, but overall, really, really good job. All right, so I'm going to pee really quick, and then we'll look at paper number 2 and give this transition for y'all. check this one out. We got, first of all, I want to say to the student, thank you. You know who you are, but they went ahead and automatically anonymized this for me, so I didn't have to go in and do it. They put student on everything, which is nice of them to do. So let's check out this paper. Like I said, first stop in grading anything for me is MLA. Just get it over with, right? I mean, if you were in my position, you'd probably do the same thing. Why would you not? It's something that you can grade immediately without thinking about. So let's take a look. The other thing that I want to remind y'all of too is that if you do have a specific question as I'm going through this, please ask. Please ask. I want to answer questions. I try to be straightforward in going through this, but I also don't want to confuse y'all. So, oops, that's the wrong one. Okay, good. All right, so MLA looks great. They've got the date formatted correctly. They've got the information in the right space. As you can see, there's not a space between the title, which is the previous writer would have gotten a 90 on their paper had they not had that space there, right? It's like very small things can make a difference like that. Also, every paragraph is indented, which is great. Let's scroll down. Looks like they are at 4.5 pages, which is the max. The memo is on its own page, which is good. And then we got, well, there are some issues here. So let's look at this. This guy should be on its own page at the end. So you want to move that down onto its own page eventually. Not here, because that's where the rubric is. As far as the citation, I'm just going to go ahead and look at that. I remember, so I'm not a walking, MLA encyclopedia. I'm like y'all, like I don't memorize these things. Why would you do that to yourself? I'm almost sure that after the date of creation for an image, when you're citing an image, that you use a period, because that's a very consistent feature in MLA. So make sure you turn that into a period and have a space in between this URL. Also, I think the title is probably capitalized if I had to imagine, but if it's not, then, oh wait, you're right. See, there's the title. It's not capitalized. So you right, I'm wrong. Let me delete all of that. But other than that, things are looking good, except one thing. And this is important because, again, I've told y'all this multiple times. I hate MLA so much. I wish I didn't have to teach y'all MLA. I wish I could teach you APA or Chicago, but unfortunately, that's something that's out of my control. In MLA, you have to write works cited. You have to. The same rules apply in Chicago and MLA. Like in Chicago and Chicago and APA, you have to write references or bibliography. But you want to make sure that that's exactly what is said. So don't say anything like this. It always needs to say works cited. Other than that, great job. Again, like I said with the last paper, I'm not really taking off points for minor issues with citations because this is kind of to get y'all's feet wet in that field. So I'm going to say 9 out of 10 for the works cited page not having the correct title. But other than that, this is great. So good job, writer. All right, so title of this paper is Images Speak 1,000 Words. Interesting. I'm really bad with titles, so I don't know why I'm judging it. I literally write the worst titles ever. Like I'm the person that just writes title. Okay, so images are able to say 1,000 words. A single image has the capability to change our mood or outcome on the rest of our day, or leave us wondering why or how in today's society of social media, liking and sharing pictures are commonplace and are excellent ways of raising awareness for a topic and to quickly appeal to the masses. So what better way to spread a piece of propaganda than social media? Okay. So we're going to just take a pause and kind of absorb what just happened, okay? There's some rhetorical questions being asked, which I'm a fan of, right? But also, it feels like you were setting up a question and then didn't see it through, or maybe I'm going crazy. A single image has the capability to change our mood or outcome on the rest of our day, or leave us wondering why or how. It might be just because you intentionally have this there, and I understand why you did that as a writer, because it forces me to stop, right? Like, that's sometimes in writing you want to have your reader just be stopped in their place. So I understand why you did it. In this case, it makes it seem like you're setting up more questions about this right here. So I would suggest taking out this question mark right here, and then just lowercasing this o, and so make us wondering why or how. But it still seems like there's a what there. Why or how what? I don't know. I don't want to spend too much time on that. But the other thing is, and this is like a personal pet peeve of mine because I've taught English 1101 for almost 2 years, for anyone, and I've never said this in class, so to the writer, like, don't take this personally. Please never start a paper with "in today's society." Please. I'm just begging y'all. Please do not do it. I've seen it. It's just been done so many times. It's a very tried and true way to start a paper. But I just, like, when I see it, I don't know why, I just get so angry. Maybe it's because I've seen it so many times. You really don't even need that. You could say, with people using social media, liking and sharing pictures are commonplace and are excellent ways of raising awareness for a topic, right? But in today's society, it just seems kind of like grandiose for no reason. And it's, people use it to kind of set the stakes higher than they should be. Maybe that's why I don't like it. But writer, please cut this out. And if you have it in your paper, please cut it out. And also don't say "in today's world" or anything along those lines, unless you want me to get really angry from the beginning. All right, so people will often repost or share an image with the belief that they are helping to solve the problem, when in reality, all they are doing is adding to it. Yes. In 2013, crisis, here, introductory adverbial clause, or prepositional introductory clause. In 2013, Crisis Relief Singapore launched a new campaign titled "Liking Isn't Helping," featuring jarring images of people suffering the aftermath of wars and natural disasters, surrounded by thumbs up or likes. Interesting. This new campaign was aimed directly at the social media audience. Okay, I see what you mean there. Their goal was to use these disturbing images to shock people, to show them the harsh reality of what is going on in the world and how they are accomplishing nothing just by liking an image, right? Say that to Twitter. The most popular image they released featured a toddler missing a leg, lying alone in a hospital bed surrounded by thumbs up. In this picture, the arrangement, color, font, and juxtaposition are all tied into people's feelings of sadness and shock, with the hope that they will finally take action. Good. So before we jump into this further, obviously I think that the thesis statement is the last sentence. How do we know that? Well, just like with the lesson I gave y'all the other day, one, it's specific, right? So we're setting up what's going to be covered. So in this picture, the arrangement, color, font, and juxtaposition are all tied into people's feelings of sadness and shock. Okay, specific. It also makes it manageable. I know from the right from the get-go, right, that this is going to be covered in 4.5 pages, right? I don't feel overwhelmed by the amount of things that this author is trying to cover, or this writer is trying to cover. So I feel kind of confident in their ability to approach this. And is it interesting? Yes, because this is a very weird piece of propaganda, right? But also probably an effective one, I would imagine. I'm interested to see what the writer says in the memo. So one thing that is missing from this, I think this is a good paragraph in general. And I think that when we were talking about ways to set up an introduction, one of them was like, I can't think of the word, but it's like showing people kind of why this artifact is deeper than it appears on the surface, right? And I think that that's what the writer is going for, especially with kind of this anecdotal intro about in today's society and social media and stuff. But what's missing from this is I don't ever get the sense that this is propaganda until the very end. I want to see some jargon in here. Like, for example, where's that? Their goal is used to shock them, to show their harsh reality in the world and how they are accomplishing nothing. The most popular, blah, 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 and they will finally take action. So here, when you say that they will finally take action, I don't know what that means, because really what it seems like this is an awareness campaign more than like a call to action. So maybe that's what I'm feeling, is that there's just disjointment between what you're setting up here in the beginning and what you talk about in your thesis statement. So if you are going to say that it's causing people to take action, which would line up with my sense of propaganda, right, or the definition of propaganda, which causes people to think or act, how would it cause people to take action? Would it cause them to get off social media? Would it cause them to actually go and, try to make physical changes in the world? Would it get them to stop liking things? I think these questions should be answered, or at the very least set up in this opening paragraph. All right, so let's start reading. When looking at this image, the first thing the audience notices is its arrangement. All right, hold on. Let me go to the image. Yeah, I could see that. And that's why I want y'all to have your pictures in your paper, so I can jump back and forth, right? Like, I want to be able to reference the actual picture when you make claims. That way, if I'm ever confused by something you can say, I can be like, okay, yeah, I see where you're coming from. Babies and toddlers can easily become the center of attention in a picture, so the first place the eyes are drawn to is the single-legged child laying in the bed. Good. This immediately utilizes pathos, our emotions. When someone sees another person without a leg, they feel sadness or empathy, and even more so when it's a child, okay? I'd buy that. By including a child in this piece of propaganda, the CRS is telling people that without the viewer's help, another child could perhaps face a less than living outcome than this one. I'm not sure what that means. It's kind of confusing phrasing. That another child might not have the same outcome. Maybe that's what you were intending. I don't know. This arrangement is quickly able to take hold of an audience's emotions and make them feel sad, but also ensure that they do not look away. Good. So is this paragraph centered around the same idea, right? This is a huge thing with paragraphs, right? Like, I want to make sure y'all aren't drifting and trying to, inject a bunch of claims into one paragraph. Like, you need to stay focused. So if the paragraph is focused on arrangement, is that where we end? Yeah, this arrangement quickly is able to hold the audience's emotions and also ensure that they don't look away. So good. I think those are both good claims. I think it's fine. Similarly to how the child is arranged to grab the viewer's attention, another hospital bed is shown at the top of the image. The other bed is only partially in view, and we are not able to see it if there is anyone in there or not. Hold on. I don't remember that. Oh, yeah. Okay, I see that. Again, this is why it's important for y'all to put it. The inclusion of this other bed amplifies the viewer's feelings of sadness to a near limitless extent. We'll come back to that. That is because this other bed is making the audience formulate questions in their mind. Perhaps there's another child in the bed, or perhaps it is simply empty. Either way, the audience does not know. Okay, good. That answers what I was about to ask about this one. This use of pathos is subtle at first, but it is an excellent way to bolster the effectiveness of the artifact. By leaving the obscure bed up to their interpretation, the audience is forced to think further about this image, allowing it to have a longer lasting effect on their emotions. Good. And maybe even subtly too. So I think that actually I'm going to give you a SpongeBob good job here, because I was a little cautious because I was like, this seems like a big claim to make, right? Like this phrasing right here, feeling of sadness to a near limitless extent. I would say maybe cut phrasing like that because it's kind of exaggerated, right? You could just say, because one of the things that you're getting at here is that this is like an implicit thing, right? This is something that the viewer of this image might not think of, but it's definitely there in their mind. When they see the bed, they're wondering, is there a baby there? Is there not a baby there? Why is that other bed there? So on and so forth. So instead of saying sadness to a limitless extent, let's set that up, right? Let's say the inclusion of this other bed amplifies the viewer's emotions by, and then cut that and then just jump into the sentence. The inclusion of this other bed amplifies the viewer's emotions because this other bed is making the audience formulate questions in their mind. There you go. That's all you need to say. And then you can go into maybe what kind of questions that they're asking because of this other bed. But you do want to avoid kind of making really big, kind of unclear claims like that, because it's going to just confuse me and, to a wider extent, other people reading this, if that ever is the case. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one that's ever going to read this, but let's just imagine. Okay, so along the same lines, crap, is it already 3? Wow. Along the same lines, just to let y'all know, if you do need to bounce, definitely bounce, because I'm going to do another paper after this. So don't feel the need to hang out if you can't. Along the same lines, when inspecting the coloring of this ad, the viewers will notice that it's only shades of gray or white. The lack of color gives the artifact a more somber or dreary feeling. Black and white images are often associated with a more serious topic nowadays. Contrast and color are also highly emphasized, such as the darker skin of the child on the white bed sheets. Good. This contrast highlights the loneliness of the toddler because we can see how small he is compared to the large amount of room in the bed with him. Sure. Okay, yeah, I will buy that claim. Furthermore, the dark spot on the blood of the child's missing limb is highlighted by the white bandages wrapping that area of his leg. Both of these examples are meant to make the viewers feel guilty. Perhaps they have liked other images of a similar fashion in an attempt to raise awareness, but now they might realize their mistake. These stark contrasts highlight the seriousness of the situation. No one wants to see a child laying alone in a hospital, and especially not one missing a leg. This aspect of the artifact is another use of pathos, and the audience is left feeling depressed because of the dark mood set by the dark colors, and also guilty because of the contrast set off by the dark colors. If this image had been in color, it may have not had the same emotional effects with that effect. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because you set that up in the first couple sentences, and then you kind of hammer it in the end. So, good job. I think there is a lot of, in this paragraph particularly, I don't know, now that I'm looking back at it, I don't exactly know what you mean when you say, the toddlers, or the kids, skin color on the white bed sheets, because although it does contrast it, I don't know if that's intended to make the audience, see it as not a white child, You don't really go into that, but you do go into how it makes the audience focus on the child. And so I think that maybe you should revert into that when you're talking about skin color and contrast and how the whole thing is in black and white, right? But other than that, I think you stay pretty focused. The typography on this image is small and white and blends in so well that the viewer's eyes only take notice once they have taken in the rest of the image. Towards the upper left, the letters read, "Liking isn't helping." The statement is short and choppy. The bluntness is meant to stamp its meaning into the reader's head. The font is small, but looks like it would be utilized in an important document, giving it a serious tone. Hold on. Let's check it out. Yeah, it's a Courier font. So yeah, it's like what you would use in a legal document. So I buy that. By choosing this font, the author is establishing its credibility to the viewer before they even know who the source is. Hidden in the bottom right, "Be a volunteer, save a life," followed by the logo CRS with crisis relief written underneath, provides more command-like messages for the audience and some information into the background. I don't know what command-like means. So again, this is just an example of be careful with the adjectives that you use to describe things because it can confuse people, right? You want to be more specific. This call to action is providing a simple solution to the audience that has gotten the message and wishes to stop liking and to start doing. The sentences are simple but effective. They offer a solution to the guilt they now feel by saying that all they have to do is volunteer to help save a life. Likewise, crisis is not a word that is thrown around lightly. This use solidifies how desperate the situation is. Good. So talking about the semantics of the word is good, I think. Semantics, just a fancy way of saying the meaning of a word or how people perceive the meaning of a word. Like a good example of that is gay as a word. The semantic definition of gay has changed in the last 50 words, right? 50 years. It used to mean happy and was used very frequently by a lot of people. And now it's obviously meant, to indicate if someone is like homosexual. And so semantically it shifts. And so when you're talking about semantic interpretation of words can have positive or negative meanings, right? They can mean culturally specific things like gay. But I do think it's good that you point out that the intentional word choice is there to make people, I think crisis is a negative word in my mind. I think that's what the writer is pointing out. By keeping the statements, I'm now realizing though, I think I might just stop after this paper because it's probably going to take me another 20 minutes to get through this, and I don't want to have a 2.5 hour live stream. By keeping the statement short, the author is ensuring that their point is not misinterpreted and is acting like a call to action. The text in this artifact, although small, plays a big role in the emphasis of how important it is to do more than just like something online, and how by volunteering someone can change the outcome of another's life. I don't know about this one actually. Hold on. Let's I really feel like I need to change that graphic. So I'm going to read the beginning again. The typography on this image is small and white and blends in so well that the viewer's eyes may only take notice once they have taken in the rest of the image. So that's a good example of contrast and color. Towards the upper left, it does this. So, okay, hidden in the bottom right is that. This one action is providing a simple solution to the audience that has gotten the message and wishing to stop liking and start doing. Okay, good. Okay. Yeah, no, I buy this now. Now that I'm rereading it. Okay, so that's good. Sorry to Toby Maguire you there, but it happens sometimes. The juxtaposition in the artifact between the array of thumbs up and the maimed child is illustrating how the likes are doing nothing to help the child or the situation that he is in. This appeals to our moral values, our ethos. Good. Yeah, I agree. Well, yeah, okay, we'll see. Liking posts online is effortless, and the use of electronics has turned other once tedious tasks into ones that we may complete without a second thought. Good. Because of this, many people may be led to believe that their like is helping in some form or fashion, that somehow their like is making an impact. This juxtaposition is the author saying how that is clearly not the case. After seeing the child surrounded by the thumbs up, a feeling of injustice is laid upon their mind, causing them to think, how could this happen? But also a harsh and guilty realization that they must take action if they truly strive for change. Furthermore, a sense of irony is brought up with the comparison. What exactly is there to like about this image? Good. By adding, I was hoping you would bring that up actually. By adding the opposition of the thumbs up and the maimed child, the author is forcing the audience to reconsider their actions and encouraging them to act upon what they think is morally right. So what was the original? Okay, juxtaposition between the thumbs up and the child. Okay. By adding, I would reinforce juxtaposition here. The author is forcing the audience to reconsider their actions and encourage them to act upon what they think is morally right. Yeah, okay. No, this is good. And I do think that it's a lot of build up. So it is appealing to the ethos of the audience, right? And their sense of right and wrong, which I 100% agree with. By implementing various visual elements and tying them into the rhetorical appeals, the author is giving the social media audience a wake-up call. The effect of these visual elements on the audience is a depressing and potentially shocking realization that all the likes in the virtual world have no real value in the real one. Whether they knew the insignificance of their likes or not, they now have a solution to their guilt and know what they must do if they want to make a difference. But one thing I want to say is like, I still feel like there's not a clear indication in this artifact of what they can do. Maybe they can go to this website. I can't really see the text there just because the image is kind of like low quality. But maybe that text says something. And I think you addressed it in one of the previous paragraphs. Hold on. Okay, yeah. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, okay. Follow the living crisis relief. Be involved. Okay, be a volunteer. Save a life. Okay. They now have a solution to their guilt. And no. Okay, so yeah, I would buy it. I think it's doing it. It's difficult to say because it's not a clear. I mean, saying volunteer for something is a clear call to action. I just wish maybe for the writer that you like connected these dots maybe a little more clearly here. Maybe even just said that right here instead of saying they have a clear solution. So they know that they can volunteer in real life instead of just liking, right? So then we know this call to action is substantive. Overall, good job. I think that you focus your analysis well. The paragraphs are focused well, which is good. Let's look at the memo and see what the author thinks. I find this piece of propaganda to be incredibly effective to the intended audience of social media platforms, but also to anyone who may see it. Personally, I believe that upon seeing this image, many people will either come to the realization that their likes contribute no help in situations like these, or they will have already known this, but will finally feel the need to take action. The arrangement of the toddler surrounded by the thumbs up does a good job of grabbing and keeping the audience's attention, while also giving them the sad feeling of how could this happen. Juxtaposition is successfully used in making them feel the need to take action and do what is morally right, and is supported by the typography when save a life, be a volunteer is stated at the bottom right. Good. This has given them a simple but valid way to make a difference. Many have the preconceived notion that the more likes something has, the more that it will be affected in the real world. At the Kardashians. While this may be true in some cases, it is not in this one. And this artifact does a good job of backing that up. In terms of the effectiveness of the unintended audience, anyone viewing this image will wonder why the child is missing a leg. The jarring image alone may be enough encouragement for them to take action, although the black and white aspect of the image does give more depressing vibe to the viewers. A colored image is always more attention-seeking than a black and white one and could possibly extend the audience. Yeah, but I do think that a large, like you pointed out, writer, a large portion of this, the appeal of this particular artifact is that it is black and white because it highlights a lot of things that would probably not be highlighted in color. So, and it might also catch people's attention. One thing I do think is ironic about this is that if it is shared on social media, the only way that it can reach a wide audience is if it does get a lot of likes. So it's like actively campaigning against likes, But in order for it to do that effectively, it has to get likes, which is the irony of social media. But overall, I agree with your assertion. I think it could change people's minds, and I could see this done in a lot of different ways because it is a problem. People on social media do think that sharing something is activism. I think there's a word for it. It's called slacktivism. Could be wrong. All right, so let's see. I'll let you all grade it. I think this is going to be the last one just because we're about to hit 3:30, and that was my limit anyways. But this was a good example, I think, of an alternate approach to a static image. I'm gonna grade it really quickly, but I'm interested in what y'all have to say.
Keep your secrets. Good.
Wow. All of y'all are saying A. I let Ashanti, you're like, I'm just clarifying that it's me and not someone named Madison Moss. Mid A. Y'all gonna be maybe shocked. Okay, let me spit back over to the okay, so we got 5, 5, 2, 3, so I landed at an 87 with this one. And I'll kind of explain my rationale here. Although I do think that this is another really great example of how not to delve into summary, right? Like, a lot of this really gets into the specifics of their claims, right? Like, one paragraph that really stood out for me was the one on typography, because he got into the semantics of word choice and how it's a specific call to action and, super specific to back up all these claims. But what got me down on analysis wasn't necessarily that I was like feeling this was delving into summary, or sometimes it was dragging on a little too long, which there were some instances of that. There were just a lot of the times like very confusing word choice and phrases that kind of took me out of the author's focused point. And you saw me a couple of times like pause to be like, hey, this is not, like, here's a good example. Oh no, that's a bad example, sorry. So like here, right here, command like. There was another one. Yeah, sadness to the near limitless extent. I feel like although this paper so well goes deep into an analysis and doesn't really ever go into summary, which is what I want y'all to do, it kind of shoots itself in the foot sometimes with its own word choice. If you were to keep things focused, right, and not use words that could be interpreted to mean a lot of different things, or kind of maybe have a wide range of potential effects, like sadness to a limitless extent, but kept them focused on what you're talking about. Like, this is a paragraph that's focused on how the child is arranged, right, to make people feel sad. But by adding in something like sadness to a limitless extent, I don't know. There was a lot of instances in this paper where I just felt like the writer was trying to beef up their claim. Additionally, what really took me the analysis and part of the organization down was kind of this opening paragraph. Not in today's society, even though I don't like that. I don't take off points for like one thing. I wanted a kind of a more concise setup, and this is kind of similar with the last paper, right? But I wanted it to be clearly established that it was making people think or act in a certain way, and then establishing what it was making them do, right? Not necessarily setting up why social media is awful and, why it makes us do things, but what the propaganda is doing to make people realize this. So I landed at an 87. Maybe it is because I'm grumpy, because Taco Bell is really making me feel awful right now. But for the writer, just to give specific feedback to the writer, if you're still in here, one thing I would consider is kind of cutting down ambiguous word choices and keeping your paragraphs focused on the one thing that you're trying to prove, right? And using that word over and over again, even if it feels redundant. Like you want to hammer in this point that you're making. Also work on the opening paragraph. I think your thesis is great, but work on setting up the aspect of the paper, which is propaganda analysis. Overall, everything else great. There was a couple of points I took off for grammar and spelling. I'm sure some of y'all saw some things. And there are also some confusing sentences, which again goes to my analysis. And the MLA style was just that works cited. So I think this is a great paper. I do think it could be an A with some revisions and some kind of going in and doing a double check for word choice specifically, and making sure that you're not like exaggerating claims, right? Like you want to make sure that the words that you're using to make a claim are very specific and pinpointed. Good job. So yeah, it is almost 3:30, and I could do another one, but I would be doing this until 4 or a little after. So I'm probably going to cut it off right now. What I will say to the people that are still in here, I'm free all day tomorrow. If you do have a specific question, well, Justin, it is, I told y'all that this paper was going to be graded a little bit differently than the last one, right? So I'm going to find something wrong with all of y'all's papers, right? No one's going to have a perfect paper. But for a rhetorical analysis, like you want to at least be super specific with the claims that you're trying to make. And that's where I felt where this writer specifically was going wrong, is the claims themselves were ambiguous, although the evidence used to support those claims were very solid. That's what the work needs to be put into. And also for the writer, like, you know, this is the volunteer paper, so you can definitely go and fix it before Tuesday. Other than that, if you do have questions via email, please let me know. And if you want to schedule an appointment to look at your paper, also let me know, but you do need to schedule an appointment like before Tuesday. Don't email me on Tuesday and say I need to talk to you about my paper. Y'all have a good day and a good weekend. Good luck working on your papers. And the one thing I was going to say, I have on the schedule that there's a video that y'all need to watch. I'm going to go and post that on Sunday because the original video got taken down. I can't find it anywhere, but I'm sure it exists somewhere on the internet. So I just need to research and find it. So just be on the lookout for a video. I think it's only like 5-10 minutes long. But we are having class on Tuesday, so I will see y'all then. Peace out.